off top. Chimps could run 25 miles an hour, apparently. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
I don't believe it.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. We're joined, as we are every Friday, by our beloved Mina Kimes. I'm with you, Mina. I thought that was ridiculous. 25,
Okay. To put that in perspective, Kevontae Turpin, when he broke free on the slant, hit a max speed of 22 miles per hour. Is that what you cited as well, Dominique?
Yeah. Of course. We were discussing this. That would make that chimps are faster than everyone in the NFL, and they do not have the body type. Like, they got little baby legs.
It weirds me out. I think that's what I hate. It's like how grizzly bears can run fast, too. There's something about... Like a cheetah running fast doesn't bother me because it looks normal. It looks natural. A chimp running fast is somehow incredibly disturbing.
Don't they like run? They're not on hind legs a lot. Like they use their hands to
When they run on hind legs, they put their arms out like as a T, like a little kid, to stabilize themselves.
So I'm guessing that chimps run. A chimp sprint is probably like the way cats run, where they do use their hands, right?
Yeah. Oh, they can scoot. I'm watching them now.
So
I'm watching it now too.
We believe that they can run 25 miles an hour.
I don't know, Mina. This all started because Dominique said he could beat a chimp in a fight.
That's not what happened. That's not how it happened.
At first, I was like, no shot. They're 2.5 times stronger than the average human. But then a Reddit thread does suggest that someone who's a specimen like Dominique could beat a chimp in a fight.
Okay, so.
It started with him saying that I would lose to a 40-pound monkey, not a chimp. I was like, I
meant chimp.
I would whoop a 40-pound monkey.
Do you remember growing up when a chimp ripped a woman's face off?
Oh,
that was like a national story that
I remember. I know. I respect chimps. A 40-pound monkey, I whoop his But Charlie then said, what about a chimp? I was like, I would give the chimp all he wanted. I'm not sure I would win.
And you said it couldn't hawk you down.
Oh, yeah. Chimp not going to walk me down. If I could run. But if there's a straight up fight, I'm not saying I would beat a chimp, I would give a chimp some trouble. What I was saying to Charlie is that Charlie said they're 2 times stronger than the average human. And it's like, Charlie, what about me as average? Like, I'm not an average human. Stop it.
2 things that are upsetting about a chimp running. I realize that what is so upsetting about it is bipeds shouldn't run on all fours.
Yeah.
It's like, what like when they get down all of a sudden
it feels like a transformer.
Wrong.
Yeah, that's
feels wrong.
Yeah.
The other thing is when they dust your you have to look at the stupidest animal butt of all time. I forgot about that. I'm watching this video. The chimp turned around and that bare chimp butt filled my screen. Truly upsetting stuff.
Chimp cheeks.
By the way, that chimp that ripped the lady's face off, his name was Travis.
Oh.
Travis is giving you the business, Dominique.
What year was that?
Okay. See, the woman did not know she was in a fight. What I'm saying is, like, if you put me in a ring with a chimp, I'm not saying I'd win.
It's 2009.
Charlie, you would get your whooped.
Yeah, no
by a 20-pound monkey. Charlie got bullied by monkeys. This is how it started. Charlie was talking about being in Bali and getting punked by monkeys. They took his stuff and wouldn't give him anything.
They didn't take my stuff, but if you go with sunglasses and shiny objects, they'll take them from you, and like you might need to barter and give them like the tiny bananas in exchange back for your sunglasses.
Oh, man. I don't know what the transition from this to speaking of wild animals, the eagles. I don't know. There is no transition. Let's just talk. I want to talk to Mina about
I think Mina's still watching chimps run.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm reading about Travis. This is one of the longest Wikipedia pages I've ever seen.
Please chime in if anything interesting pops up. I'm going to start talking about football. So, in the NFC, I think we've boiled it down to 2 teams, the Eagles and the Lions, we feel like are probably the best challengers. I would say that Mina's facial expression means that I need to stop talking and let her speak.
I'm sorry. She used to sleep with Travis in a bed. Okay, I'm done. That's all I've got on this.
Yeah, we need to stop. Sorry, we need to get out of this one.
Sorry, football.
All right, so Lions, Eagles. Probably the 2 standout teams. And the interesting thing, I think, about these 2 teams in the NFC, the interesting thing about these 2 teams is they've gone, at least in my mind, through some level of transformation defensively. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to give up on the Eagles from last year all the way to early parts in this year. And then at some point in the early part of this year, I was like, I'm done with y'all. Y'all just aren't good. And then I look up again and I rewatch a lot of their recent games and watch the way this defense is playing, and they've remade themselves based on the talent that they have. And I just kept saying this team will never be good if their D-line can't dominate the way that it used to. But their D-line isn't dominating the way that it used to, and they have managed to become one of the best defenses in football. Some of this could be about the opponents, but when you watch them play, like they shut down Joe Burrow in that passing attack. They got a secondary that is really, really playing well and is the strength of their defense now. It's just really impressive, the transformation of this team. And I don't want to do too much Howie Roseman love, but like it feels like this is Charlie has something. Is it chimp related?
Yeah, just last two things.
Oh, God.
Travis enjoyed watching baseball on television, and he has driven a car before.
I remember too when the story broke, there was a lot of "did she deserve it" rhetoric. All right, sorry, done.
Yeah, no, it falls into the category. It's in the submersible category. Like when you messing around with these sort of things.
Oh
yeah,
my
you
God! Imagine if this had happened like in the age of social media.
Oh my gosh! This is perfect fodder for for the internet.
Sorry, back to the actual.
I think it took me. I was also skeptical about the Eagles' defense, Domonique, and so it was the competition for sure. But I think what has impressed me the most, there's a lot. They're first since about week 6 or so, right around the time that DeJean became the starting nickel. They're first in like every possible metric. And again, the competition certainly matters. But when you watch them on tape, they look like a first place defense. Yeah. It's not based on anything unsustainable. I've found the other thing I would say that has been really jumped out to me, aside from the young talent, it's an interesting mixture though of like young talent and old talent. Like on the defensive line, Jalen Carter's amazing. He's the best player on the defensive line. I would argue Brandon Graham. Yeah, how old he is at this point.
15 years in the league.
Whew. That dude still can play. Oh my God. And then on like the second level, Nakobe Dean. It's great to see. Oh, okay, he's young. Zach Bond, older player, positional change. Right. Found the right role for him. Same thing on the back end with like you've got some of the. It's an interesting blend of older and younger players that perhaps was necessary to sort of execute what Vic Fangio wanted to. And that's the other thing that jumps out to me, Domonique, is like week to week, different styles, different blends of coverages, different game plans, and there's no busts. They're communicating at a super high level. They just look incredibly well coached.
When you said what Vic Fangio wants to do, like I like felt a little something, because what I thought you were getting to is like this is a Fangio defense, but it's not in a traditional sense of what we thought of like a Fangio-style defense, because they do from week to week. And that's a really impressive thing. They have this talent and intelligence to switch up schemes from week to week. I was looking to see like how heavy do they blitz. And so you look at all their games, and each game it's like very drastically different how aggressive they are blitzing. You look at the coverages. There's some coverages, some weeks where they go too high. There's some weeks where they're a lot heavy single high. But the ability of their players, it stems from their comfort in man coverage, which I think opens up every other option, because that's one of the harder things to do. And we should credit Cooper DeJean, but before we get to crediting Cooper DeJean, I think like Quinyon Mitchell, the way that he's been playing this season has been like they have a true one corner. Like I don't know that you can call anybody a shutdown corner anymore in the league, but he's comfortable against everyone, and they're comfortable with all of their players against anybody. And so like you would move, one of the things that the Bengals would do is like move Jamar Chase around, because then the defense tells on itself. If we're playing man and we don't trust anybody but our number one corner on Jamar Chase, if you move him, we got to move, and we show it. If we're doubling, the show comes when you move. They don't do anything. They just had him matched up on whoever they put him on. They would match him up. If it was a double call, if it was a man call, they just live with it. And that's That's a lot of talent. And one more thing. You brought up Brandon Graham, and I was looking, again, I don't want to get too much into the Howie Roseman love, but like this defense is playing really well, and the biggest cap hit is like Brandon Graham is like the second highest. I think Slay has 10, and he's the highest. It's just like not even an expensive defense at this point, and they're still playing really well and getting better because they're so young.
So this week is a different animal, though, right? Because one of the things I talked about the communication a little bit, and one of the things I think that really jumps out is they've gotten so good at handling motions. You can see them communicating and passing off responsibilities. They're really good at, I was thinking about this against Washington, sorting through bunches, for example. But the way the Rams do those two things is so unique. The way they get to those bunches, the way that players come out of them, the types of motions they use, the angles that they create for Puka Nacua. So I'm just fascinated to see how the young secondary in particular handles all of that. And also, Domonique, what kind of game plan Vic Fangio, we talked about sort of the different game plans week to week. What kind of game plan he rolls out this week? We talked about this a little bit on my show. This is the first time that Sean McVay and Vic Fangio have met since the infamous 2018 Blueprint game.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very different offense that presents very, very different challenges. So this is a real measuring stick game for both these coaches.
So to your point, I was watching the communication and the way the DBs work together. Oftentimes you're going to see man-to-man, you'll use the stacks. And it's like one receiver on the line and one very close and behind him. It's because you can create angles and picks. You can't get pressed and can get open. And there's a few different ways to play it. And I've only seen the Eagles, and I haven't watched all of their plays, but I've only seen the Eagles play the stack in one way, where they put a press man on the point of the stack, but he's actually guarding the guy who's off the stack. And that's a great way to do it, because the guy who's on top is normally going to be the one that goes deep, and the guy who's behind is going to use the guy up top to pick off his defender and get open. The problem with only having one way to defend it is that a team like the Rams, who specialize in that, they have combinations to break every defense or every way to approach that. So I think that, I don't know if Fangio will go with zone or if they'll add in other ways, because there are other ways, like you can in and out it, you can high-low it, you can lock the point. There's a bunch of different ways that you can handle it, and I think they should have the ability to switch them in the course of the game. But the challenge there is that then opens you up to communication, lots of switching. It opens you up to blown coverages and big plays.
Weirdly, the team I thought that actually maybe handled that the best was Miami, which I did not see coming. Vic Fangio's old defense, I thought, did a phenomenal job on the back end. But the other reason why they had success, and this is going to be, I think, really significant for the Eagles, is just that ability to get interior pressure against Stafford. He still puts on tape some of the best throws you'll see week to week. But Domonique, Charlie, to my eye, it feels like pressure is affecting him more so this year. And that's where I think, as much as we can talk about sort of the X's and O's and all the great players in the secondary, I feel like for the Eagles to get a few stops, this needs to be another dominant Jalen Carter game.
That's really interesting. The Jalen Carter of it all, he seems to have taken a leap, but do you guys view him as a consistent force at this point? Because that's sort of the question with him as a player.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say I'm sure you didn't mean this by saying the leap, but
sorry, from the end of last season.
Right. I think that the question around Jalen Carter isn't could he get better, it's could he get more consistent. Yes. And that's what you mean by the leap. And I do think that the problem is there hasn't been a large enough sample size. I would say that, yes, he's been consistent for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I guess. But we had 3-4 weeks last year where he was dominating. So I don't know, but I sure hope so. And they've gotten other things, like you mentioned, Graham. They get other contributions, and they're so good. They've been so good against the run, and I think that's a lot of credit to the D-line and the linebackers. So the D-line are keeping the opposing offensive linemen from getting to the second level. But what I saw Blankenship specifically at safety, but also the linebackers is a quick trigger. Like they get, and this was one of the things
Dean
I loved about.
really good at this.
There we go. This is one of the things I was gonna say.
Yeah.
One of the things. No, I love it when. In the draft, talking about Nakobe Dean, one of the things I love most about him was he got the best run-pass reads, most consistently right and fast run-pass reads, and that makes the job so much easier for the D-line and for the defense, particularly against the run. So, like, oftentimes they want to double a guy and then work their way to the second level. Before they could even get to the second level, Nakobe's already bashing into the line and creating a wall that forces the running back to bounce.
Dean, to me, like they've put him in such a position to succeed this year, and they've been able to tap into the things that Domonique described that he does best because he has excellent vision, speed, and he's really smart. Yeah. Problem is, he's not very big and strong. Yeah. So if the defensive line isn't keeping him clean, and you saw this last year, he can get run out of plays. But if they're playing really well, he has the opportunity to be like a true game wrecker because of how quickly he triggers and gets downhill.
In this matchup, isn't that especially important, though, because Stafford and the Rams have the lowest EPA per dropback on 3rd and 4th downs this season, and it seems that when there's these high leverage plays, having a really smart player will make it an even bigger difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think having smart players makes a difference, particularly at the linebacker spot against these play action centric offenses, which I guess like the modern version of the Rams is not like the Lions offense in that way. But like I think Nakobe Dean is to Mina's point, like he's small, but like that's kind of what you have to be as a modern linebacker. Like you have to be able to move, and he's on the smaller end even for modern linebackers. But if they're going to have the D-line that they do have, I think he's kind of perfect. And I remember the draft, that was a Vegas draft, I think, right? Maybe when we were in Vegas, that I remember him sliding and people
injury.
I was injury rumors.
It was because they also got Jordan Davis in that draft, and I remember thinking how they pull this off, getting both these players. And Jordan Davis has had some impact on these games too, which has been, I mean, I guess not surprising, but nice.
This whole season is a good reminder that, it can take players a second in defensive players to find their roles, find their spots, get better. I mean, I think it's just such a nice blend of experience at this moment on this defense. And the other thing is like, I mean, just as far as this game goes, Domonique, like I think that the Eagles offense is going to have a ton of success. So for Philly, it's really just about getting like a few stops. I don't think there's like pressure on them to pitch a shutout in this one, because their side of the ball to me is the better matchup.
All right, well, let's switch over to the Lions in this future NFC Championship matchup. I think the Lions defense is a different situation in that they were bad, I thought, and then you look up and see the numbers and like, they're pretty good. I think the recent games, they haven't faced a lot of great offenses, so that's part of it. I had a hard time because when I watch them play, it's very different from the Eagles. It's like I watch them play and I'm like, and then you look at like the advanced metrics and they're like 3rd, I think, in EPA
really good.
For overall defense. And then try to figure out how this is happening because they're an aggressive blitz defense that plays a lot of man coverage, but they don't get a lot of sacks. They get a good amount of turnovers, but it's not like if you strip them of the turnovers, like their defense doesn't plummet out of the rankings. They still have a respectable defense. And it seems like it's 3rd down in red zone. It's like what makes up why their defense is so good because they have some really glaring holes. Like we know about the pass rush hole that they've tried to fill with Zadarius Smith, which he's helped. But the other one to me is like the linebackers, man. Linebackers in passing situations give up big plays. And I was not shocked to see, but as I was trying to dissect this offense, not just through film, but through stats, figure out where the issues are and why they don't look as good as their stats say. It's interesting because they're so good on 3rd down, but they seem to be really bad on 2nd down, which is not a down that we talk about much or care much about. But the EPA on 2nd down is much worse than it is on any other down. And then the big plays that they give up on 2nd down often are attacking the linebackers in the middle of the field and hitting those play action plays.
Yeah, that's about it really. I have to say, I think that the fact that they've held up without Hutchinson to the extent that they have, even considering what Dominic will get to, kind of the linebackers or the second level being a potential issue, particularly against the team we just talked about, perhaps, by the way.
Yep.
It's kind of remarkable, frankly, right? Like you talked about how good they are in advanced metrics. Even if you narrow those to since week 7, they're still top 3, which is amazing, frankly, that they've been as good as they have been. And to me, when I watch them, the defensive tackles are phenomenal, but I come away like really impressed by the secondary. I think that they're really, really good. And obviously they, Aaron Glenn asks a lot of them in terms of all the man coverage that they play. But I like Davis, like it's kind of slept on that signing or as a trade for like a 7th or something. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It wasn't a big move in the offseason, and I think he's been excellent. I think Terrion Arnold, obviously he's got some of the penalties, but if you take outside of the penalties, which obviously could be an issue in big games, I do think he's playing well. The safeties are phenomenal. We all know Brian Branch is one of the best players in football at this point. And I think that's a big part of why the defense has held up, is that Aaron Glenn can really lean on that secondary to buy him time and play man coverage at a pretty unusually high rate. The thing about the second level, that's real. I think Campbell's been really good against the run this year, and that's really helped him out in that regard. But if you're talking about like against a team like Philadelphia, that's what I would expect them to attack. Yeah,
the corners, I love them. And like the Houston game was essentially felt like it was won by Carlton Davis in the plays that he made in the course of the game. Did he have 2 picks in that game? I think. So, but and they were very important and changed that game. That's what scares me about this team, though, is, and I did a podcast with Robert Mays about like the declining cornerback market as far as pay is concerned, and we tried to kind of break down why, because it's still a high value position. And one of the reasons that came to my mind was it's a kind of a volatile position. Like you can be a great corner and have a bad game or have a bad year. And particularly if you're not getting pass rush and if you're blitzing a lot, which this team does, and it doesn't seem like it's sustainable. They've had a situation where it's been sustainable so far, but I think that's what scares me about them in comparison to the Eagles is we've seen the Eagles approach different games different ways and play defense depending on the scheme or the opponent that they're going up against. Like the shortcomings that the Lions have force them, and the strengths that they have force them to play one way. And that one way is going to require Carlton Davis, who is very good but is not very fast, and Terry Arnold, who's very good but is pretty young and kind of grabby. It's going to require them to lock down some pretty good receivers. And that to me is scary. And then it's that second level stuff with the linebackers. So while this defense is advanced metrics really high, the eye test for them is like, it's not bad, but it's scary, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny, we're looking ahead to this matchup. I feel like, yes, those quarters I think have played really well, but nobody can play man coverage against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, it's just really, really difficult. I think the fact that the safeties are elite, and I really believe they are, helps a great deal. But in my mind, if you're thinking through that matchup, it really starts up front. You got to rattle Jalen Hurts. You got to come up with a good game plan. And Aaron Glenn's really, really good at calling pressures. You got to force him off of his spots, and you got to pick him probably once or twice, frankly, which are things that I actually think the Lions defense can do, Dominique. You'd love to see Zadarius Smith start to come along a little bit more. Obviously, just joined the team. But the good news is your offense is so good, it might not matter. So, but yeah, I think what's remarkable is we focus on these defenses, and I think this is kind of why I like that you kind of group them together. Both of them are so much better than I thought they would. I thought the Lions defense would be improved. I didn't think they'd be this good. I thought the Eagles defense would still be like a real problem, and they're obviously incredible. So they're both just the reason why we are able to like kind of look ahead is they just feel like so balanced, which is pretty shocking.
It's really interesting. These rosters, have a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
I know they're not exactly the same, but just how loaded they are across the offenses and all the skill position players, and the concerns that we have started with the defenses where they've overperformed. And you said, are they going to rattle Hurts if this is an NFC Championship game? It's really the same thing on the other side. Are they going to rattle Goff as what is?
Yeah,
You're right. I mean, it's offenses that are built around really good offensive lines with quarterbacks that are not quite elite.
Very good.
With a bunch of great weapons. Like they have the running back in Philly is one running back, but in Detroit is two guys, and they have
Gibbs.
Yeah, they have receiver. Like it is very similar teams in construction, and both have defenses that are playing above what we expected.
And two head coaches who are equally beloved by their fan bases.
Nailed it. Nick Sirianni. Anyway, who do you think wins in a fight? That's a dumb question. Never mind. How do you think? I was going to say fight Campbell Sirianni, but that's a dumb question.
What if Nick Sirianni has a chimp on his side?
My money is still on Dan Campbell because Dan Campbell's not normal. Nick Sirianni and Travis.
Travis is from Chimparty, Missouri.
What?
It's so messed up. The whole thing is just really upsetting.
Oh, man. All right, Mina Kimes, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week. Next up, we got Jess Smetana after the break. What?
No Survivor League?
No. We got to pick our games.
Oh,
hold on. Stop.
I came back from the dead for just the Survivor.
Oh, that's right. He almost didn't survive the season, but I know you got
Who did we pick last week?
I don't know.
Last week, Mina picked the Dolphins. We picked the Lions.
Okay.
So on the season, me and Domonique are 3-0. Mina is 2-1.
Not true.
It's
inaccurate.
a game behind.
The season's much longer than that.
No. In the preseason, Mina was 6-1. I was also 6-1. Domonique was 4-3. That's the pre-preseason. In the preseason, we were 0-1. You were 1.
No, that was the preseason. Then there was a regular preseason.
Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, Hall of Fame game. Mina was 1-0, and we were 1. Anyway, we're 3-0. Mina's 2-1.
Nice.
Mina, you cannot pick the Saints, Eagles, or Dolphins. You're on the clock.
I hate this so much. So stupid. Okay, I can't pick the Saints, the Eagles, or the Dolphins. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and take. Rolling. I'll take the Texans this week against the Titans.
So, Domonique, we can't take the Commanders, Vikings, or Lions.
Okay.
We gotta pick one on the fly. We can't give up our lead. Ooh, should we take the Chiefs coming off the loss against the Panthers?
Oh, sure. I don't know. I'm a little nervous about that matchup.
Are you?
No.
Okay, we'll take the Chiefs.
You think I think that the Panthers are going to beat the Chiefs?
I don't know.
No. Yeah. We'll take the Chiefs.
All right. We're on to 4-0. Keep that one game lead in the Survivor pool in the regular season, not the preseason.
Way to go, Mina. Bye. All right, we are joined by one of my favorite people, one of my favorite cast members of the Dan Le Batard Show, the great Jessica Smetana. Hello, Jess.
One of your favorites? That's not a good introduction. You have to just lie and say favorite.
No, I was lying and saying one of my favorites because I don't feel like dealing with the I mean, because then I'm going to have to get calls from people like, hey, I thought you was favorite. No, that's it.
All right, I'll take it then. I like the amendment there to what you said already.
You can be the number one favorite when you tell me how you almost got attacked by a baboon.
Yes. Well, okay. So this came up because you were talking about if you could fight a chimp.
Yeah.
I was attacked by a baboon at a park in Cape Town. They put like all these warning signs up that are like, if you have any food in the parking lot, the baboons will attack, and they were not messing around with that. So I was like walking down the sidewalk with my boyfriend. This was like 5 years ago, and I think either I had a bag of chips or he had a bag of chips, but a baboon just like came out of nowhere and tried to swipe it, and he just like shoved the bag of chips into my chest and ran, and I was like left holding this bag of chips while a baboon was like lunging towards me. So I just dropped it and then like ran away, and the baboon didn't care about me. It wanted the chips, but it did, like, we made contact. We made physical contact. It was very scary.
Hold on. You just gonna blow by the most important part? Your boyfriend gave you?
Only gotta be faster than Jess.
He pushed the chips into your chest and left?
He skedaddled. Yeah,
RPO.
he was like, I'm getting out of here.
Oh, I mean, hey, self-preservation.
I just like put up an arm and I was like, no.
So I assume the chimp or the baboon took the chips and you were fine?
Yeah, the baboon took the chips and I felt like the biggest idiot in the world because there were, of course, like 50 tourists staring at us like, oh, this idiot just got attacked by a baboon. Like the baboons are everywhere. Like they are not, you can't miss them. Like we obviously knew the threat was there, but we were so hungry after our hike. We were like, we need a snack. We're going to risk it. It was not worth the risk.
All right. I feel like I want to ask more questions, but I think those are for a counselor somewhere along the line. We'll move away from that.
We're still dating.
Oh, good for him. Well, I got to give that man some credit.
Oh, yeah.
He got some game. I don't know what he told you, but that is impressive because I can't imagine being with my wife and letting the baboons attack her and she still want to be my friend. But anyway. Let's get to our normal construct, the good game bad or the good game guilty pleasure game.
No bad games.
No such thing as a bad game, Jess. They're just guilty pleasure games. So, Jess, we'll start with you. What is your good game of the weekend?
I picked the Ravens-Chargers game on Monday night. I'm super excited for the Har Bowl rematch now with a new team in the NFL. Both exciting offenses, both great quarterbacks playing against each other. I think that it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited for it.
The brothers, like, they're so different, which I guess we all have siblings and we recognize that we might look like our siblings, but we're very different. But I do find it hilarious when John and Jim are put next to each other and we just have to compare them. And obviously John is the sane, reasonable one, which he had to be that because his brother's always been.
Yeah, and Jim's the little brother, right? Like he has such little brother kind of weird attention-seeking energy.
Mixed them up.
You mixed them up?
I was mixing him up in my head because I guess yeah, that's right. So the smaller one is the older one, the one that coached me.
Yeah. The smaller one's the older one.
Right.
The younger one is the one who said he just decided to be 6'2" and prayed and drank enough milk so he could be 6'2" to play in the NFL.
I mean, he had the advantage. That's the, like, then they do like some research on the siblings thing, the second sibling. I was a second sibling. There's always a better athlete because you're a second, better athlete. Charlie was a second sibling.
Worse athlete.
He's the only one who
he's considerably less athletic.
He's the only one that bucks that specific trend.
It's a genetic thing.
John does give off oldest child energy, and he has to be organized and controlled. Jim can be completely nuts and physically destroy everything, which is how he's built this team. It's been fun to watch. I think so far this week we've talked about the Chargers a few times on a few different outlets, and the thing that it kind of reminded me of is like how simple football is, and John never forgets how simple football is. It's like, we don't have to get cute. We're going to bash you in the face, and we'll do something else if we have to. But the first priority is get big men to play tackle and then push people around. And then from there, we'll compromise whatever we have to in order to be more physical than our opponent.
It's the meme, the old Joe Burrow meme where before they drafted Chase, and it was should they draft Chase or Sewell? Well, with Herbert, they're like, what if we just keep him up with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt?
That's incredible, yeah. I was a Sewell guy. Were you Sewell or Chase in that draft, Jess? Do you remember when people said...
Oh, man. I think I was a Sewell guy also.
I was Chase.
You're right, though. They're not sort of doing anything groundbreaking. They're like, hey, our big quarterback is the best in the league at throwing it 10 yards plus downfield. We're just going to have him do that a bunch of times.
I think Charlie, so this is the first time that I even considered going into this game that, like, the Ravens could legitimately lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about the Ravens before the season and especially during the season when they've had some of the best looking offense that we've seen in a long time. We've been talking about them like a real legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think my mind changed a little bit on them when I noticed that their defense wasn't going to get better. But like, this is a game they could really lose, and it will change the way I think we think about the Ravens for the rest of this season. And it could impact Lamar's MVP, which I'm sure he doesn't care about that, but I think it does kind of force us to be honest about how good the Ravens actually are or aren't.
Don't you think that we're going to learn something about the Ravens team against this Jesse Minter defense? Because this is sort of the inverse of last year, where their defense seemed completely impenetrable and their offense is, I think they have the best offense in the NFL.
Right.
I think coming off the Steelers game, the Steelers are so well coached, have such a good defense, and they were able to take advantage of every single margin against the Ravens team. Doesn't the tiny part of you think Lamar's just going to walk out there and just eviscerate this team?
I mean, it's always a possibility with Lamar. I think the impressive thing about Jesse Minter's defense is that it's not gimmicks and it's not smoke and mirrors. And I think a lot of teams have to use that stuff. And sometimes those are innovations that catch on all across the league. That's not them. They play straight up defense and they play it well. They're not perfect as far as talent's concerned, so there are weaknesses that Lamar and Monken can exploit. But I imagine, to your point, Lamar's going like it's Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator on the other side.
QB power.
Yeah.
How much is he going to love running QB power against the Ravens?
We got the sense that Lamar was ready to evolve the offense. Yeah. That's the reason why Greg Roman had to leave. And I assume that Lamar is certainly – we've all kind of accepted some things about Lamar in these big games. He's always prone to be a passer more than he is a runner, and I think that's only going to be amplified in this game where Greg Roman's on the other sideline. He's going to want to throw for 330 and 4 touchdowns through the air. Yeah. I'd like to see him scramble a little bit more and put that pressure on the defense, but that's just never been his MO.
There's so many revenge games happening inside this one game. It's quite remarkable.
It's revenge of the brothers. Not that John beat him in the Super Bowl, but that Jim tried to murder John when they were adults. Did you hear that story?
I forgot about that.
He tried to drown him while they were on a family vacation.
There's so much Harbaugh lore. It's just bizarre what this family has done.
All right, what's your guilty pleasure game, Jess?
I'm going to go with the Patriots and the Dolphins because this is a total hate watch for me. The Dolphins, since Tua's come back, have been obviously so much better than when they didn't have Tua, and Tua's been playing really well too. But there's still a team that, like, I personally, living in Miami, working with a bunch of Dolphins homers, like, I just want them to be out of the playoff conversation. I'm so sick of it. I really don't think the Patriots will win this game. I think the Dolphins are better than them, but it would be funny because I think the Dolphins are like, hey, look how easy our schedule is for the rest of the season. We totally have a shot now that Tua's back to get back into the AFC wildcard picture. And that's true. And I just would like it to not be true. I would like for that to finally end.
I mean, the Pats have been playing better, and Drake May seems to be getting better week in and week out. Like, it's not I mean, I guess that Dolphins defense, I think, is probably one of the tougher ones that they're going to see. But, I mean, it's not out of the question. It could happen.
Yeah, Drake May is such an exciting player to watch. I mean, I feel like I listened to Nate Tice talk about this, and he was talking about how he played in the true air raid style at North Carolina with zero structure, and just seeing him with any structure in the NFL, he's been significantly better. Or a lot of the issues he has already been significantly cleaned up. So I'm with that. Plus, it would be I'm just rooting for you on Monday to hear everyone be sad. Love it, our show.
You guys are two haters. Like,
this is my thing. After the Rams game, they were like, all right, well, the Dolphins are 3-6 now, but they're about to be 5-6 because they're going to beat the Raiders and the Patriots. And I'm like, oh man, I can't do this.
Counting multiple games in a row.
It's just going to be so funny. But yeah. I'm really sad Dolphins fans.
We can move past this game to my good game. And Jess, I rely on you for a lot of my college football information. So I think I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the Indiana-Ohio State matchup. Like, that's a good game, and it's going to have incredible implications on the college football playoffs and the way that we perceive these teams. It's like it's weird to say the undefeated team, but it's an absolutely must-win to me for Indiana, right?
So that's sort of like the big debate right now in college football because Indiana's schedule hasn't been that difficult up until this week. And like that's not their fault. It's not their fault that the defending national champions, Michigan, are just so bad this year and Indiana beat them. But I think like 2 weeks ago, I would have told you, having just seen Indiana in the second half against Michigan, just like really be physically outmatched, that this might be an Ohio State blowout. We might be seeing some carnage, but having like sat on it for a couple weeks, I actually think like Indiana is good because of how just like sound of a football team they are. Like they're not going to make a ton of mistakes. They're very well coached. They're just playing like as a entire team like very well, and so I think they could make it interesting. I think it will be a closer game than people think, but that is sort of like the existential question is like, if this is like a 14 or 21 point blowout or more, like, is Indiana just going to have no shot at making the playoff? And so, I mean, this season's sort of on the line for them in that regard.
It's, I mean, the new version of college football since the NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff has kind of changed college football has been harder for me, someone who likes college football but is not a college football obsessive like you, because my assumption is it takes a while to like become one of those teams, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. Whereas, like I want to say, to your point, Ohio State's going to blow them out because it's Ohio State versus
most talented team in the country,
versus Indiana.
Right.
Except I've been like caught flat-footed a couple of times with some of these SEC matchups where I'm like, all right, I know that these teams are good, but like, come on. Ole Miss isn't going to beat like Georgia. Like, come on, let's be serious about, like, they're going to give them a good game and Georgia's going to pull away. And this, like, LSU, that reminds me. That used to be your coach. How happy are you that Kelly is down there stinking it up in LSU?
I'm not gonna.
Jess is a Notre Dame alum for those who don't know.
Yeah, right. It's Notre Dame fans are all in the weird position where, like, you don't even have to root against Brian Kelly because you, like, Marcus Freeman is so much more like easy to root for, I think, and very handsome. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the thing about Indiana that's so interesting is that, like, preseason rankings in college football carry so much weight that a brand new head coach can come in and bring a ton of recruits from, their old school to transfer over that already have familiarity with his system and, like, what he's doing. And so they may be new to Indiana, but they're not new to Curt Cignetti. So, like, why can't we sort of give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit? Like, if this were a team like last year when Florida State sort of, like, had all these, like, hot and exciting new transfers come in, we were like, yeah, damn, they're really good. Granted, like, they did end up getting screwed by the college football playoff committee anyways at the end of the year. With Indiana, there is a sort of like a brand name thing going on there.
Who's the team this year? I mean, I guess last year felt like it was Georgia, right? Was the team that had the significant complaint, but I feel like all the teams are going to get in, right? That was last year that Georgia lost.
Yeah, they lost to
Alabama in the conference championship game. But I guess it still could be, the seeding could be a problem. But is there a team, or could it might actually be Indiana, the team that by the end of all of this, we look up and say they have a legitimate gripe for why they aren't in the playoffs? Is there a team like that?
I mean, yeah, I think there's several teams that meet that criteria, honestly. I think Indiana's probably the one that SEC teams are the most like viscerally angry about at the moment because they're looking at that strength of schedule rating thing. Miami could be another one because, like, Miami hasn't played a super difficult schedule either. They lost to Georgia Tech, and they may get an automatic bye if they win the ACC championship game. So they're going to end up being, in a better position than a handful of SEC teams, despite the fact that a lot of SEC fans don't think they've played near the amount of talent. So yeah, I mean, there's very much conferences being pitted against each other right now. And there's not, like, this is like, the conferences are ginormous. No one made the Big Ten and the SEC make the conferences ginormous. No one told them you have to add Texas and Oklahoma. You have to add Washington and USC and Oregon to your conferences. So this is sort of the byproduct of that. People are going to get left out even though they've expanded the playoff.
I just think it's interesting that, like, because they're moving more and more to a professional model, but they're still holding on to, like, some relics of the past, is the inconsistency in scheduling makes it so that a campaign is needed, which is kind of funny. Like, I know election isn't a thing that we want to talk about, but it's funny that you kind of need a campaign arm in college football that you don't need in other versions of professional sports, where it's just like, let's go out there and win. That's all that matters. But in college football, you kind of do have to, like, rally support around you so you can get the fans to put pressure on the TV partners, to put pressure on the committee. It's just a weird, I don't know. I mean, I was going to say annoying, but it kind of makes it a little bit more fun and a little bit more interesting in some ways and different.
Like you said, I mean, the conference scheduling is super uneven, and, like, going towards the more, like, NFL pod model, I guess, maybe would help with that. Like, Indiana doesn't have to play Oregon or Penn State this year. Ohio State did, so maybe that's uneven. But also, like you said earlier, also, like, college football teams do, the good teams generally stay pretty good, but, like, there is a ton of fluctuation from season to season. Like, no one, like Miami didn't expect that Florida State was going to be a 1-9 team when they were, on the schedule this year. So that didn't really help them out either.
All right. My guilty pleasure game is kind of falls into the college mold, even though we're going back to the NFL, in that if you lose, you might be out of the playoffs. San Francisco 49ers, they're hosting the Packers, and the 49ers season has been kind of a season from hell so far with injuries and losses, and we've all been talking about whether their window could close or not. And I just saw that if they lose this game, they go down to like 13% chance to make the playoffs. It feels like in a division that is very kind of clogged, I guess is the best description. Everyone's 5-5, or there's one team that's 6-4, maybe the Cardinals at the top. It feels like the 49ers, who are 3-1 within that division, they got to find a way to win this game. And honestly, even if they win this game, I've kind of lost.
Yeah,
it's kind of over.
What's the ceiling do you see for a team like this? Like
playoff first round loss, maybe second round loss.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries for the 49ers are tough. Like, do we know if Bosa is playing or not?
The defense changes with Bosa on or off the field. Right. I'll look it up while you're talking.
I think he's questionable right now, if I'm correct. But yeah, I mean, this is also a playoff rematch from last year, right? This is like 49ers with their backs against the wall. I don't know. I think the Packers sort of coming off of the excitement of beating the Bears last weekend, a team that they just, no matter how well the Bears, the Caleb Williams looked a lot better last weekend, right? Like, no matter what the Bears do, the Packers will always win that game. But at the same time, you're right. Like, the 49ers backs are sort of against the wall. This is a much must-win game for them in that position. So this is going to be one that I feel like could be super close, but might come down to, like you said, some of those key injuries and whether or not they get to play.
And this game is in Green Bay, not San Francisco.
Awesome.
And it's going to be cold.
It's going to be snowing. It's going to be pouring snow. And honestly, I'm more interested in the Packers. They're the team I just can't quit this year.
They're the same.
I know. Okay. I know you're right. But I can't get the 8 games that Jordan Love played at the end of last season out of my head, despite the fact that he has been a much more erratic quarterback than that this year. And the 4 receivers that they have, I love them all individually as these pieces around him. And, would I be shocked if they're the team that gets really hot at the end of the season? Absolutely not. I would be less shocked about the Packers making a deep playoff run than the 49ers. And if you had told me that 6 weeks ago, I would have thought that was insane.
Yeah,
I mean that's crazy.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Tell us why.
Just the very last part. Like, you would be shocked if I told you the 49ers had a deep playoff run?
I guess
if you had to put money on one of them having a deep playoff run, you'd say you feel more confident about the Packers getting to the Super Bowl than the 49ers.
And this is like, but
you don't feel confident in either.
I would be pretty surprised if the 49ers made the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I would be also pretty surprised what the Packers did, but slightly less surprised.
Yeah, I think just because the 49ers have that track record, I give them the benefit of the doubt. And the thing about Jordan Love is why you could be right and wrong is he's so like up and down, and he trusts his arm so much, and he takes such aggressive throws. If he hits them all in one game, there's nobody that they can't beat. But the problem is it's so unlikely that he'll hit them all in one game. Like, there's going to be a turnover because he's being so aggressive and throwing into tight windows consistently.
It's also like, talk about a year from hell. Like, him and Christian Watson get hurt on that field in Brazil in week 1, and the season is completely thrown for a loop. Like, that's terrible.
Yeah, that is. And I mean, they still hung in there with Malik Willis.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, your games, buddy.
All right. So my good game's not really a good game. It's not a great slate in the NFL this week, but I'm going to take Lions Colts. The Lions are probably the most aesthetic team to watch in the NFL, and I've been perpetually fascinated by Anthony Richardson. I stuck with him through the tough times, and I didn't have to wait 5 years like all the Sam Darnold sympathizers that I have to talk to on the show. I had to wait about 5 weeks. And I missed the show on Sunday, so I couldn't talk about his resurgent comeback.
That was great.
So do I think the Colts and Anthony Richardson have a shot against the Lions? Absolutely not. Am I excited to see if he'll put up some fun numbers in that game while seeing an incredibly aesthetic Lions offense? Yes.
How are the sympathizers doing now?
Oh, they went back into hiding. Not a word of I was wrong, not a hand up, my bad guys, just slowly retreated into the shadows.
You still got 4 more years before you have to retreat on Anthony Richardson, but you don't have to retreat. You got your chest out.
That's right.
You don't think that it was last year or last week was a result of that? I mean, I don't think so. I was going to say result of that bad Jets defense, but the plays that he was making were sustainable. It wasn't just like blown coverages. It was Anthony making great plays going up against this Lions team, which we talked about earlier. I think it would be a good test for him.
I was listening to this great football analyst who said that they just actually changed the way they did things. They got the ball out of his hand fast. They let him run QB power to the edge.
Yeah,
and
great.
I was like, wow, that's a great point, Domonique. I'm so glad you said that. And so it's a thing we've talked about for a while. Like they had an offense built around these insane deep shots for Anthony Richardson, low percentage throws, and he came back in and they're like, let's get this guy some easy wins. He hemorrhaged some of his confidence. So like, let's get him moving the ball effectively.
Sorry, I thought I heard a throat clear in your place.
Yeah, you did. It was my boyfriend. He bristled at the Chips baboon conversation. He's like not even in the same room as me. It was a very aggressive throat clear.
Oh, I mean, does he want to defend himself? Or is it? No.
He's not allowed.
Okay, just checking.
I don't know. The Lions defense, I think we all thought that they were gonna like fall off of a cliff, right?
Yeah.
When Aiden Hutchinson got hurt, and they've been really good. So
they rule.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah, like I feel like everyone looks good against the Jets this year.
Mm-hmm.
Fair point. All right, Charlie.
Okay,
guilty pleasure game.
My guilty pleasure game is a very guilty pleasure. In early season NBA 76ers Nets. I haven't broken the format from picking an NFL game in one of these yet, but the way that Jess feels about watching
the Dolphins
lose is the way that I have just microwaving popcorn to watch the 76ers fall apart. Because for the last couple of years, I've just been telling Domonique, I'm like, Joel Embiid is so annoying. All of his antics are ridiculous. This guy is
Jess, this is a personal situation we have here. So like I as you know, I fall on the side of labor and specifically players more often than not, and I've always find a way to defend players, including Joel Embiid against Charlie. However, I watched the 76ers
flopped on a free throw.
I watched the 76ers last 2 games, and they lost to Memphis, who didn't have anybody playing, it felt like. And it was.
And did you see what Embiid did in that game? The flop and leg drag, and then flopped on the free. Like
so, I know this about him, and my defense of him has always been they rewarded it, and so like he was optimizing. Right. However, he was flopping around in this game, and they weren't calling the flop fouls. He just kept flopping around, and then this team is just so annoying to me. Paul George got hurt, and the whole Tyrese Maxey thing, like. I like Tyrese Maxey. And so the story of Tyrese Maxey, they had a meeting and the players were calling each other out, and Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid for being late. I'm fine with that. I hated that it got leaked. This team annoys the out of me. And it just started 2 weeks ago.
I'm shocked that you hate that. No one hates people being late more than you.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I didn't know that Joel Embiid was late all the time.
This is what flipped it. This might have been what flipped it.
That might have been it, is that I discovered that Joel... Like, I mean, because it's disrespectful, Jess. It's disrespectful.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, it probably should have stayed in the locker room.
Right.
Like, the world didn't need to know about it. So the fact that someone's, like, leaking it speaks to an even bigger issue than just, like, hey, our star player's late all the time, which is not very good. Not good when that happens.
And Embiid actually handled it well, because he was like, yeah, it shouldn't have been leaked, but they're right. I'm the star. I need to step up. So that is one redeeming quality for Embiid. But I have to be honest, is watching the last 2 games, I was just steadily getting
unwatchable,
angrier and angrier at this team that was like, but you're talented. Yeah. Why have you only won 2 games? And then you see Joel Embiid fall on the ground, and Paul George can't help that he's old and getting hurt. You see him getting hurt and going off the floor, and McCain is the only player that is like,
he's good.
Yeah, that's only like consistently redeemable player, but he's a new dude, which is like weird for an old guy like me. Like, what are we doing? We dancing and whatnot?
Yep.
And
saving morale. You're welcome.
Yeah, he's 2 days into college. Yeah, so I mean, like the thing, this team also, we celebrated them this offseason. I mean, like Morey pulled one out of his hat. This is the unbelievable GMing this offseason to bring in Paul George, fix their contract situation, and like in a vacuum, all those moves are right. That's the thing about it. And like My larger qualms with Embiid have this has just been going on for a long time. He was a really likable, interesting player for a while, and he's been playing this way that you are now realizing how irksome it is to watch. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse because of the incentive structure that you laid out.
I have not said that the style of play wasn't irksome. It took a while to really grind me, but it got to a point where he's being late and is flopping around. And the fact that they aren't calling it. When he got the MVP, that was what my point was. He won the MVP, and yes, I saw his style of play was annoying. But the problem was they were calling the fouls. So now that last year when Adam Silver sent out the secret note to stop calling these fouls, he has not adjusted his play. And generally, people hate or see an opportunity to hate on Joel Embiid, and that is frankly kind of annoying.
See, I don't think so. I think for a long time, people held him to a standard where they wanted to like him because he's really funny. And he was like, at the beginning, we're like, this guy's cool.
Whatever.
And I thought the Olympics would change this.
For Domonique, though, it's just that, he doesn't want to be the guy that's quick to be like, haha, you suck to a player. Whereas Charlie will do it after a Hail Mary for no reason to a quarterback that he barely has any feelings about at all.
That's right. That was instinct.
Oh, man.
This has been a 10-year odyssey with me and Embiid, though.
I appreciate that Jess listens to the show and has a callback to when Charlie unnecessarily, what'd you say, off?
No,
what did you say?
Told Caleb.
Oh my God, that's so aggressive.
I don't know. It was a private moment that was brought to air.
Apology.
It was a leak by Domonique.
You have your own locker room leak.
Yeah, we have our own locker room issue. All right, Jess, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. Next time I need someone to explain college football to me. But
I got you.
I'll have
Next time you can not be like, hey, we need to have you on the show, and then 6 months later be like, about that. That's what you do this time.
Again, private locker room leaks brought to air. Everybody just leaking stuff on air. I'm sorry, Jess. I'm happy that it's like a fine wine. 6 months later, you're better.
I'm only one of your favorites. It's fine. If I were your favorite, you would have had me on sooner.
We had Billy on 2 months ago.
What are you doing? Whose side are you on? All right. We'll have Jess back on next week. Thanks a lot, Jessica. You're the best. Have a good time. I'm down in Miami watching the Dolphins lose. Bye-bye.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.